Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining Amy Asks the Expert. I have Joe Mulcahy here. He had a over 30-year career in taxation and consulting, and then went into entrepreneurship and also real estate investment. So Joe's going to walk us through his career and give us some advice on that industry. Welcome, Joe. Thanks for joining. Can you tell me how you got into taxation?
Yeah, good morning, Amy. Yeah, so it wasn't one of those things that I decided to go to college and thought I'd get a degree in taxation. I went to school and got a basic business degree in management and minor in accounting, and was looking for really just an opportunity to get started, as most kids coming out of college do. And I kind of fell into it. Somebody I was working for at Illinois State introduced me to somebody at the state in Springfield, and I went and interviewed and took a position as a appraisal specialist and hearing officer for the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board. And interestingly enough, I had no experience in property taxation, didn't own a home, never paid a property tax bill. So the state sent me to the University of Chicago Graduate School of Business for a few week program, and I passed. And within a couple of months, I was out on the road as a hearing officer, holding hearings at local county boards of review. I spent a couple of years doing that and holding hearings, writing decisions, and decided that I wanted to move up into the Chicagoland area and left the government side and went to work for a law firm doing the same thing, representing clients. And so spent about 7 years doing that, and decided to, this was really sort of my first experience in being an entrepreneur. I decided to leave the law firm and go do this on my own. So I started Mulcahy and Associates. And started representing clients, and did that for about a year. And then Deloitte hired me to head up their property tax practice in Chicago and the Midwest. I spent a greater part of maybe 15 years with Deloitte, growing their practice from being a manager in property tax to becoming a partner, running the Chicago and the Midwest, and then ultimately ended up being a global partner at Deloitte with about 600 people in 40 offices across the United States and in 3 countries. That business was sold and then sold again, and then I retired in 2016. I don't know where you want me to go from here.
Yeah, as someone who spent a lot of years in the consulting world, can you talk about what consulting really looks like for someone who might be interested in being a consultant?
Sure. From a skill set perspective, I guess what I would say my strong suits are communication skills, writing skills. I was always very good in math. I didn't like the sciences and history and that sort of thing, but I liked sort of the analytical thinking and problem solving. So I knew that I could speak, I could write, I could use math and analytical skills, and those are all the things I think from a consulting perspective that kind of pushed me and guided me to where I was successful, and I really enjoyed that. The other part of it is being able to interact with people. So even as a hearing officer, I had to sort of control the room and talk and swear people in and take in information and write decisions. I took that through my career in property tax, and it seemed like you're always sort of selling. When I was out trying to grow my business, you're trying to tell people what why they should hire you, and then once they hired you, then you're trying to convince local assessors. You're trying to sell them on your methodologies and trying to win those cases. And so it's always it was always about trying to win somebody's confidence to hire you, and then win an assessor's confidence to believe in your methodologies to get a reduction in taxation, and then being able to communicate that back to the client. And I've leveraged that over my 30 years.
Wow. What would be the challenges of being a consultant, Joe?
Um, that's a good question. I think that, in the consulting business, there's really no, it didn't seem like there was like a beginning, a middle, and an end. In other businesses, it's very transactional. Um, and I can speak to real estate with that. You get a client, they want a house, you find them a house. When they buy the house, you get your commission, you say thank you very much, and you move on to the next client. In consulting, I had clients that I had for 20 or 30 years, and they would have a problem, you would solve the problem, and then the problem would come up again. So you were constantly, if you represented a particular property, it was a cycle. So it went on forever. So it seemed like there was never a break. It was a constant. You were sort of a hamster on a wheel. Um, although I would say having a 30-year career in this business, it was nice because once you had a client, you kept a client. So you didn't have that beginning and the end, but you had that recurring revenue throughout my whole career. So there's sort of the positives and negatives.
Did you ever feel like you were accomplishing anything then when you don't have that end? Like I sold that house. Did you have accomplishments along the way that you felt good about?
Sure, because as you brought on a new client and people believed in you, and then you gained their confidence, and then you filed appeals and you got the results of those appeals. Yes, there was sort of a pause. I resolved that, but it could take a couple of years, sometimes 3, 4 years before you resolve that problem. And thankfully, I had enough clients that, I would solve a problem and then I'd bring on a new client and then maybe take another 3 or 4 years to solve that problem. And so it was sort of an ongoing, so there was some routineness to it and some repetition to it. But um, I would say it's like many jobs in retail. Customer comes in, you sell them, they leave, transactions over. You had to maintain that client relationship, and for many, many, many years, which was a good thing, which is one of my strong suits.
I know that you traveled a lot internationally. So what were were the projects that you were working on that took you international?
Um, some, I would say, majority of it was that we had offices in Canada and offices in India that were support offices to, or partner offices to, our offices in the United States. So as I ran the global practice, these were all colleagues that I had around the globe.
Okay. Because I know that with consulting, you spend a lot of time traveling to your accounts. Is that correct?
Mhm, mhm.
So people who are interested in this industry really have to be cognizant of that
Right.
you're away from home a lot, I would think.
Yeah, I would say the last 10 years, I probably traveled 150 nights. I spent 150 nights away, whether it be traveling to clients, visiting colleagues in different offices around the country, interviewing, hiring, again, solving problems at a different level. As I grew in my career, it became less about client interaction and managing, 700 people around the world.
That's a great point. You moved up within your industry. You didn't just stay as a consultant. You became vice president and right. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, with consulting, the advice that we're going to give someone who's maybe thinking about this, what kind of advice would you give that person? Maybe studying, schools, anything, any kind of advice you'd give them?
I would say that experiences, as many experiences as you can have, as well as a more well-rounded sort of background, because I think if it's very, very focused, in one particular area, uh, it doesn't give you sort of the opportunity to um, take on different sort of problems and challenges. So I think that's probably why I was successful with it, because there was all kinds of different industries: retail, manufacturing, multifamily residential, office. I mean, I didn't focus just on one little niche. I had a wide, variety of different, I was an expert in property tax, but not necessarily an expert in a bunch of different industries. But I was able to take on that knowledge from working in a lot of different industries over the years.
And does that come through the company, or is that on your own? You chose to study things on your own.
Um, Probably through the opportunity I had with the organizations that I work with.
Okay, so you would advise someone to really look outside just your little niche that you have to have open up other opportunities.
Yeah, and the other thing I did as a young professional, that I would say that I was probably different than, you know, I don't know if I would say it's different, but um, I never said no. And so if things came my way, I always said yes. And it didn't matter how many hours there were in a day, or days in a week. I worked 7 days a week, 12, 15 hours a day. We didn't, I'm a little older, so the internet wasn't around. So it wasn't like I could bring my laptop home. I'd have to drive into Chicago, and I may, or take the train back then into Chicago. And I'd be up at 4:30 taking a 6 o'clock train, and may not get home till 9, 10 o'clock at night, almost every day of the week. And sometimes most times on weekends as well, which was nice when the internet came around, because I could take away that commuting time on the weekends. Um, but I think it's not, saying no, saying yes to those opportunities and trying to fit those opportunities in, because I think that's what gave me the opportunity to expand my experience level. I didn't say I have too much on my plate, I can't take on that new project. I always took on new projects, always wanted to learn new things.
Did you have a mentor along the way?
Um, I would say that I had different mentors. So the different the different bosses, the different managers. I'd say that's another thing that I probably was probably good at, is looking at the people that I was working with, and I would emulate the things the leadership skills, or the you know management skills, that the ones that I really liked, or some of the leaders may have had really good analytical skills, et cetera. So I would take the bits and pieces from different people and make them my own. And those qualities that I didn't like, I would leave behind. So I would say that what made me over the years the person that I am is learning from different individuals, but only taking the qualities and experiences that I liked from each of the people that I worked with.
Did you find yourself heads down in any kind of book that transformed that type of leadership either as well?
No, a
Okay.
lot of people have asked me through the years, is there any kind of book that you read? And actually, it's just sort of the book of life. I mean, I learned from different people around me, and like I said, I chose the ones that I really wanted to emulate. If you want to be a professional tennis player, follow the pros that are really good.
Mhm.
Learn their good habits.
And don't you feel that mentorship is very important in a career?
Very important.
Mhm. And being able to ask someone to be your mentor.
Yeah, the mentorship didn't really come into my career until I joined Deloitte. So I was probably 10 or 12 years into my career, and it really wasn't a thing back when I sort of got started in my career. Everybody was sort of, you're on your own. But one of the things that I learned is that if I was going to scale a business, and to your point of, is it important? I learned how important it was, because if you're going to scale a business and bring people on, why would you bring them on unless you're going to teach them and train them and want them to learn everything you know? If you're going to hold all that stuff to yourself, then why bring them on? Because you're setting them up for failure. So my philosophy was, bring people on, get them integrated into your business as fast as you can, teach them as much as you can, as quickly as you can, so that, because it's sort of the old adage that, if if you want to teach, if you want to have people be able to fish, you got to teach them to fish. Otherwise, you're going to do all the fishing and you're going to do all the feeding. And so I tried to bring people on. I actually had a senior development program that we instituted in later on in my career, and I had others that helped me that brought this globally across the country, so that as you brought on 10, 20, 100 new people, you could integrate them in your business and be able to scale your business very quickly.
Love it. Love it. Is there anything that you would do differently in your career?
I don't know. There's probably some decisions that I made along the way. I think as a young professional, I was a little bit more headstrong, probably less sitting back and thinking about, how I would attack a problem. And so I would just, put my helmet on and head in there and maybe learn after the fact. But I think that's probably some of the things that makes you who you are. If somebody shows you the way with everything and you don't learn yourself, then it doesn't make as big an impact on you the next time around. So sometimes you have to make mistakes in order to learn.
I agree. Is there anything as a last parting word that you would want to say to someone who's considering consulting?
I would say this, you've got to be willing to put in the time. It's not one of those things that you're going to learn overnight. It takes a lot of time and a lot of experience. I used to have some of my young professionals would go out to interviews or meetings with new clients, and they would say, how do you know all these questions to ask? How do you know how to respond to all of these things? When am I going to get there? And it just came with a lot of years of experience. It's not like a job. It's really more, it's a career. It's not something that you're going to go in, you're going to learn a skill set and you're going to come into work and you're going to do that every day. Every single day is going to be different. And so that if you're not willing to accept sort of change on a daily basis, it's probably not the right area. But it's very rewarding career, but it's also you have to sort of have the patience, because as I learned early on, especially in sort of the property tax world, the cycle was 4 years. So you're not going to be able to see something come around for another 4 years. And if you're not going to be able to give it that 4-year cycle, you're not going to be able to see something all the way through. So it's not something you can jump into and you're going to learn in a week. It takes years.
That is great advice. Really great advice, Joe. I appreciate your time so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Amy.